central levels, depending on the level of involvement. I guess there are kind of environment which local and central, which are quite different ones, I believe, in our countries. So approaches should be targeted on that way so that we would become more efficient, taking into consideration all the factors, how media are related, how our media mainly, most of the media are influenced. And it was discussion even in some conferences that I just listened on the news that almost no media is non-affected by anyone because it's the basics of its existence most of the time is financial. So who financed more affects has a decision. That applies for CSOs as well, because we discussed before more how that, let's say, a financial issue was mentioned. It was also a discussion somewhere that in local, even in the region, but in Europe, in any kind of conference, that many times are mentioned that how CSOs are independent, which is maybe in reality it's almost impossible as well, because whoever provides financial resources implies some kind of politics behind. Let's say we cannot take politics in policy, but some kind of agendas. Let's say international organizations, it might be the case, which we are not discussing if it's not good or good, but that's at least taken into consideration that we are not really independent. But we don't have time to discuss that, the implication, moral, ethical, and all that are related to that. But there are some certain areas, so it's kind of complex issues that to be into consideration. But capacity building, I would just conclude overall, so that mechanisms, how to find the best mechanism. So that's not a part of any government. So governments don't necessarily build CSO capacity. So that's our need, and we have to fill that need. One way is to hold this training as well, which is yet taking into consideration all these factors that we mentioned. Institutional mechanisms for citizens participate. Well, information technology, we'll get back. We have some examples as well. Well, we are on that path where information technology is applied everywhere. And one way of methodology of how to interact government, central and local with its citizens is information technology. Do you have any example quickly, maybe just a brief example? How could that be effectively used in decision making? Or maybe it's still on the level of information sending by yes?
And it's very efficient when something happens. There is very popular web forums, and then all the people express their opinion.
We don't have enough time maybe to discuss further into this, but taking into consideration, let's say, CSOs needs always to take into its applicability, its access to its citizens, because let's say in rural areas, they might have problems. Some different communities might have problems because of limited level of understanding into this, and not being able to access overall in some areas. Let's say maybe in some parts of some places where there are kind of limited resources. Maybe the whole village doesn't have any access to information technology as well. As an institutional mechanism for citizens' participation, there are some mechanisms we discussed in the meantime. Also, let's say further mechanism could be like opening CSO office and governmental bodies within government and locally as well. It was, let's say, offices for public information, which is a case study in Albania, but other countries believe they have as well. Other communication channels. let's say with stakeholders involved in different areas, might be professional associations, let's say that could be not necessarily the governmental institutions, let's say in certain areas, if not necessarily policy development or drafting any law or helping on that. With media, also with business sector, which wasn't mentioned that much, that could be helpful in terms of from its sector how it can help, let's say in drafting a law which is favorable, let's say increasing taxes or decreasing taxes. Would it be okay that communication channels to be developed with that sector as well or not? And to be included also to have impact, maybe even to help in processes. Because sometimes even they find themselves in a position of civil society where they are not included in the processes. Okay, we have field analysis. We don't have sufficient time. We'll try to make it brief. What are the main gaps between theory and practice in decision-making process? Name at least 4 areas where the gap between theory and practice is too wide. Can we just make 4 sentences that where the gap between theory and practice is too wide from your local country? Or maybe if you think so, you could make it like a homework. Identify the main causes which affects the gap to be wide, and identify the overall societal and current political environment which enables the causes to exist. So it's more like this starts from the most, starts with the subject, then the causes that creates that, and afterwards societal current situation. So that was the main idea behind this. But that could be a part of the, well, univocally we could say that the areas of involvement they were mentioned before. But we won't have time, obviously, to cover this. Briefly, citizens' participation in decision-making process. It is considered as a process through which citizens can address and be a part of implementation of their concerns, needs, values, problem solving, developing and monitoring processes in conjunction with political agenda and central local government strategies. Maybe just briefly, why it's mentioned here that in conjunction with political agenda.